Howdy, folks. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. This will be the last show of the week because of Thanksgiving and Black Friday. Kev, we're live. And we'll start with the pre-show, but I just wanted to, we're going to, tomorrow will be Thanksgiving, obviously. Tomorrow will be Black Friday. Everybody will be out trying to get things cheap at the stores. I, for one, will be sleeping and let everybody else get up at 5 o'clock in the morning for discount goods. Russ, I know you have something for the pre-show, and I got something, so you start. Go ahead.
Okay. I wanted to talk about, I saw that Jackson Browne recently got nominated for a Grammy, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool on his new album. Then I looked it up. He's 0 for 7 for Grammys, and I found that impossible to believe, considering the breadth of his music and how that pretty much spans across a lot of different people. Even someone who we went out to dinner with recently is about 15 years younger, just saw Jackson Browne, James Taylor, loved the show. So I looked it up. I kind of looked it up the same way I would look up, like, how did this guy not win the Cy Young, or how did this guy not win the MVP?
Right.
And so one year he was up against, and these are just the two that I felt were most viable, Glass Houses for Billy Joel or his album Boulevard. He lost to Glass Houses, which obviously was a sellout album for Billy Joel. It was. That was his big poppy, going to L.A., we're going to just put on radio hits thing. And that Jackson Browne, and it's really just, that song Boulevard. I mean, it's pretty good song. Yeah. But that's not the most stunning one. I was like, okay, maybe I
don't have that big of an issue with that one, given how good of an album Glass Houses was.
Yeah.
Yeah. In '79, though,
it's not The Stranger, but it's pretty.
No, right. In '79, though, the best, best male vocal performance, whatever, it was either Barry Manilow for the Copacabana or Jackson Browne for Running on Empty. And I can't believe that Copacabana won. If I were Jackson Browne, I would never, ever, ever show up at the Grammys, because it's just
the post-disco era again.
It's just how did you lose to that? That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is ridiculous. But if you remember that time, that was that Manilow album was so hot. It was constantly on, and it was like one of those things.
Both were hot. It's not like it's a bad album. I don't like Barry, but I don't dislike him.
Right.
They both were super hot in their own genres, right? I mean, that's really what it was.
Yeah.
But you know what?
I'm a little surprised, like you think about it, right? Fast Times at Ridgemont High in terms of the soundtrack, right? There was a lot of Jackson Browne stuff on that soundtrack. Kind of surprised that never got a nomination in terms of best soundtrack or anything.
The funny thing is that the best album of a particular artist almost never gets the Grammy. Like, for example, Phil Collins. Just use Phil Collins. No Jacket Required was the one that won all the awards. There's nobody who's a Phil Collins fan who would say that No Jacket Required is his best solo album. Nobody. It's Face Value, or maybe it's Hello, I Must Be Going, but it's not No Jacket Required. But No Jacket Required is the one that got all the awards. Like, for Billy Joel, I think his best album is Turnstiles. Honestly, I think that's my.
I think Turnstiles are the strange.
I mean, though, Mike, is it any different really than sometimes with Major League Baseball, when a guy has a great season, but he's up against somebody and he doesn't win, but then he isn't quite as good, but the competition that year.
I think it goes across everything, Cap. Like, one of my favorite actors is Peter O'Toole. He was nominated for an Oscar 8 times, and he lost all 8 times. I mean, he lost for A Lion in Winter, which is like one of the greatest performances I've ever seen on the screen. And I think he lost to Rod Steiger in The Heat of the Night, which is, it's a good performance. Just stuff like that. It's like, I mean,
my favorite year was a good movie too.
It was great. But anyway, my pre-show thing, since we're all going to be sitting in front of the table with our families, eating copious amounts of food for Thanksgiving, there has to be something that is your favorite, and there has to be something that is something that you just want to avoid for Thanksgiving. I'll go first. My favorite is the stuffing. I make it, but when my dad made it or when my mom made it and I make the same recipe, I love the stuffing more than I like the turkey. I make extra stuffing so I can eat it the weekend following. Thanksgiving. That's my favorite. Kev, what's yours?
I like the basic combination of the stuffing, potatoes, and gravy as a combo.
Potatoes, though.
Yeah, pardon me.
Which kind of potatoes?
Oh, mashed potatoes for sure. Yeah. But that would be my favorite. I really like that. In fact, I like the old diner hot turkey sandwich with just.
Oh yeah,
yeah. It's one of my favorite diner meals.
The open face sandwich, right?
Open face sandwich, yeah.
Russ, what's your favorite?
Everything Ken said is right. I always kind of move towards the mashed potatoes and gravy, though. I do. I don't have gravy every day of the year or really any other time of the year, but like that's when I just pour it on, and everything's okay for me. It's okay if everything touches and it mixes.
Yeah. See, okay, then I'm
okay with that, but I know that's an issue. There we go.
And here's where my anality comes into focus. Mashed potatoes. Yeah, right. Mashed potatoes, no gravy. I want butter. I do not want gravy. I don't want gravy on the plate. I get gravy and I put it in a cup and I dunk the turkey in the gravy. That's how organized I am.
Not a French split, Mike.
Now, what is your favorite, Jan?
So it's either twofold. So I'm a big fan of the turkey leg, not the Henry VIII holding it up at Disney type of thing, but big fan of the turkey leg of the dark meat. Right. The other piece of the puzzle is probably the sweet potatoes with marshmallows in it, with the mini marshmallows. I'm a huge sweet potato lover. So as much, again, I like mashed potatoes, but if you give me a choice of a regular potato or a sweet potato, it's a sweet potato every day and Tuesday. That's just kind of my thing with for me, I don't use butter, I use margarine. Okay. So the margarine and letting it melt in there, that's kind of my thing.
Anthony also agrees with the turkey leg. That's his favorite.
Yeah, I go for that too.
His least favorite is the sweet potatoes by a country mile. It's not my favorite, but if they're done correctly, they're really good. If they're like whipped up and put heavy cream in there, and then the sweet potatoes are really good. If they're like stringy and stuff like that, get away from me. My least favorite, it's a tie. The green bean casserole with the onions, the French fried onions,
with the crispy onions, whatever.
Yeah, that and cranberry sauce. Can't stand it.
I don't know how you can't stand cranberries.
You're crazy, Mike.
I prefer cranberry sauce.
Not the mole, but more so with the cranberries in it.
Yeah, to each his own. Yeah, not the ocean spray can that you slither out, and it's like
but it's fun watching it slither out of the can.
Sure.
I have a tie for my dislike. It's between sweet potato pie and pumpkin pie. You could leave them both off the table.
On the ladder there, Russ. You have never seen that one coming.
You could leave them both off the table, and I'm happy. I completely ignore it. I used to always tell my grandmother would make it, and I'd be like, I hope you're not making any for me. Don't make too many. Don't make too much.
You're a pissed off a Jewish grandmother. That works well there, Russ.
Yep.
Kevin?
As a general rule, I like almost everything on Thanksgiving. We make homemade cranberry sauce, which I find you can use and put on things, for the next couple of weeks. I love it a lot. But the one problem I have, and there's a little story here, I don't know how this happened, and mostly because I have a family of people who eat well. My wife was a vegetarian. Now she's actually a vegan. I have a daughter who's also a vegetarian. I have two other daughters who watch what they eat. So somehow, and anyone who knows me knows this is totally bizarre, but one of the family traditional favorites at our meals, it's at every Christmas and every Thanksgiving, is Brussels sprout kale salad. I don't know how it happened, but when we start planning for the holiday meals, somebody will always say, and who's doing the Brussels sprout kale salad? Because that's what everybody wants, all the vegetarians. Well, that is the only thing at my table that I have no interest in.
Well, here's
and I like Brussels sprouts, but I don't know how anybody could eat kale mixed with it.
Kale tastes like dirt. It really does.
My rabbit loves it.
Kale and arugula. I don't know how anybody in their right minds eat that crap. It really is terrible. But I'll say this: Brussels sprouts are basically mini cabbages. That's what they are. If they're cooked the right way, if they're like grilled or put in the oven and cooked with like lemon juice or something like that, they're really tasty.
Bake them to them. They're delicious if you add bacon to them.
Yeah.
So I like Brussels sprouts. It's just the kale aspect of it.
I hear you, Kevin. So for the year I was traveling up to Rhode Island every 2 to 3 weeks, the only thing that I could have that was kosher up there was a kosher vegan place, and everything basically was kale. So I had enough kale that 1 year to pretty much fill me up for a lifetime at this point in time.
Yeah. Well, we have a garden, and my wife is a gardener of sorts. And the one thing that comes in the best every year is the kale.
Of course. Why not?
Something might come in undersized, everything, but not the kale. It's just lush, it's beautiful.
Well, send the kale to Russ, and he can feed it to his rabbit.
Donna loves
that's the best. First of all, Russ had the best pre-show. I'm sorry, Mike, but I love the Jackson Brown pre-show, and also the best line of two. My rabbit likes it.
But again, it's funny. I saw a couple of years ago. I went to it's called the Lazy River Tour. So if it was at Jones Beach, they had 3 main artists in Jones Beach alternating, and then 3 artists in a small stage outside Jones Beach. So they had Peter Wolf open, which was great.
Jay Guy.
They had Steve Winwood second.
Oh,
and then they closed with Jackson Brown. Now Peter Wolf was great. Winwood, they changed some of the accompaniments for his voice, but he was still phenomenal.
Yes.
And Jackson Brown was boring as sin, surprisingly. And I'm watching it now. They should have chinged that order and closed with Steve Winwood, who was eons better than Jackson Brown was.
I've never been bored at one of his shows, but that's
Steve Winwood. Well, first of all, Steve Winwood is my brother's favorite musician and one of my favorites. He's fantastic.
Yep.
He's been great since he was 14 years old in the Spencer Davis group. Yep. Even Roll With It and all the pop stuff that he did is really good. I've seen him in concert like 7 times. He's fantastic.
He was great, and he played some Traffic stuff also during his
he always
set.
Plays Traffic.
So each of them played about 45 minutes, and Peter Wolf did he had the solo with Lights Out, but he also did some Jay Giles stuff also.
One quick final thing here. Does everybody have a night before Thanksgiving tradition in terms of food?
Nope.
Okay, because I know some people who do. Some people have a tradition for Christmas Eve. I had friends. They used to go out and get Chinese food on Christmas Eve. Like tonight, I'm getting half a pizza, not a whole pizza, because I have to eat tomorrow. But anyway, okay, let's start the show. Let's start the show. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Wednesday, November 24th, 2021.
I'm Jan Levine.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
Kevin Allen, Hockey Buzz, and just 20 minutes ago, I was stuck in traffic in Chicago. Apparently, everybody in the world is going to Chicago for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, or everybody's on the road.
They have a lot of traffic in Chicago. I know that.
They do.
And I'm Michael Lagello. I'm sorry. And I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Okay, let's start with this because we saw yesterday, and this is really esoteric stuff. It's really like if you like something, somebody else is going to hate it. Team Canada came out with their jerseys yesterday, and the one thing I drew from it, and I'm looking for a picture of it, was I've never seen the maple leaf on a Canadian uniform, international, be black. It's always been red or white, and they had a black maple leaf on a red jersey, a red maple leaf on a black jersey, and I think it was white and red.
Yep.
I didn't hate it. I didn't think it was great. Russ, I thought it's them trying to be trendy and cool and like the new style type of thing.
I didn't mind it. That one I was like, okay, I could live with it. I'm okay with it.
But then Team USA, in their infinite ability to upset, comes out with this. Kev, Russ said they look like polo shirts. I thought they looked like pajamas. I hate them.
Yeah, I don't think they look like pajamas. I'm with Russ on this. It looks kind of like a polo shirt.
To me, it looks like the old 1980s coaches' sweaters that they wore on the sidelines in the NFL.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a
let's
friend
go
of
to a
ours,
soccer jersey than it does a hockey.
a friend of ours, Ted Starkey, said it looks like they got him off the rack at Macy's. I can't deny that it doesn't look like
Yeah, there's no doubt what team those players are playing for, though.
No, that's true.
Just kind of screams at you. So
Yeah, I mean,
And given the classic jerseys that they've worn in the past on that team, you look at the 1981, obviously, you look at the World Cup in '96, you look at 2004 in some of the other ones they've worn. Just that one, you look at it and go, okay, was the same person who designed the New Jersey Devils third jersey involved in the design of this one?
And Brodeur is the guy.
Brodeur did Canada. Then maybe he brought the black to Canada for that jersey.
And Jan, there were actually people, and again, like, to each his own in terms of taste. There were actually people out there yesterday that said, "Oh my God, these jerseys are brilliant." The hat that says "hat" on it. I mean, I don't know if that was It was
the Devils poking fun at themselves, knowing what's gone on in social media. At least they were self-aware and were able to poke fun at themselves.
Yes.
Yeah, but just brutal. I'm sorry. I think they could have done much better. And honestly, this is just me being a fan of like older throwback jerseys. If you would have gone back to the 1980 jersey, I would have said fine, because I love that jersey.
Yeah, I would be fine with that.
But yeah, I mean, I think they missed the boat on this one. But and we've already touched on it a couple times this week that again, all the chatter in recent days is of some hesitancy regarding whether they're going to go or not, and we all think that they're probably going to go, but the chatter, the political chatter is out there. And Kev, Pierre LeBrun talked about something yesterday on TSN about the league sort of being wary of the All-Star game in Vegas because all the players are heading from Vegas direct to Beijing, and all the testing is going on. And God forbid if somebody is positive, somebody sneaks through the testing and is positive, and they go on a charter to Beijing, and that guy is positive and he infects other people. That's the ball game right there.
Oh, for sure. I've heard people say that there could be multiple tests given for each Olympian in a walk up to that time. Like they'll be tested in their home city and then tested when they come to Vegas. And, they'll just have to be very cautious. I'll tell you, I've talked to numerous people around the league about the frustration level with COVID right now. And what really bothers them is, they're well vaccinated. These teams are only one, maybe two. There's, I guess, talk that there might be someone else out there, but there's only one that we know of that's unvaccinated, and yet it's spreading in a room of well vaccinated players. Right. And that's the thing that really frustrates them. That they're
there's a thing about that, Kev. I've noticed that there probably isn't much mask wearing because they are vaccinated, but there's still a 38% chance you're going to spread that virus, even being vaccinated without a mask. And so they should be masked in the locker room, but I guarantee you they're not.
Well, the rules are that they're supposed to, but if you're down on the event level,
that's the rules, but
So go ahead, Kev.
Well, I was just going to say, it's like anything else. You can have all the good rules in place, but if people don't deem them important enough to follow, this is what you're going to get. But it's just so difficult. And the other issue they're having is there's a lot of attention being paid toward Lou Lamoriello's request to have the game canceled. Because the idea is look, if Lou is successful in his pursuit of getting it canceled, then where's it going to stop? Are we going to have to just throw an arbitrary number of players out there?
I do think there should be a number where you say it's not an NHL game. I think that's easy to come by. I do. I
mean, there's potentially 9 players that they're missing tonight against the Rangers, which is an absurd number, right? And with no threshold.
6 or 7 of them, Jan, are COVID. The other 2, like Brock Nelson and Noah Dobson, are injuries. But so you're calling up half of Bridgeport.
But you still have to treat it like an injury. So it's like I think it should be like 8 should probably be the number. Like if you're missing 8 players at any given time.
The only problem, I've had this discussion today, so I'm fresh with the details. The only problem with that's pointed out to me is people on the COVID list are on for different reasons.
Right.
So in other words, you can be on for direct contact and not have tested positive.
Right.
And so you said one person was saying to me, he feels like you got to look at what these cases are. Are they all positives or are they on contact?
Yeah.
But even with that, though, if you're on the list, the likelihood is you're not playing, right? So you're still scratched. So it impacts your lineup, irrespective of the reason why you're on that list.
Protocol doesn't mean you're positive. It could be
not at all.
You had contact with a positive, or you're having symptoms, but they've tested you as negative. It's all a series of different things.
But the net effect is you're out of the lineup, probably.
Correct. And the funny thing is, 8 was the magic number for Ottawa for them canceling 3 games.
Yep.
But earlier in the year, San Jose, I think, had 6, and they called up 5 or 6 players from the San Jose Barracudas. They kept playing the San Jose Sharks NHL game, but they canceled the Barracudas game because they didn't have enough players.
Right,
So,
and that's going to happen
yeah.
in all of these fronts. Like the AHL is always going to be the franchise that gets hurt that way. But I really do feel like 8's the number, like of any kind. Like if you have 5 COVIDs and 3 are injured, you're missing 8 players. Like there is a point where it's not an NHL game anymore. I do believe that.
Well, but then once we get rid of COVID, if you have 8 injuries,
no, this is just during the COVID era because even the worst of injured teams don't have what the Islanders have going on now, or what San Jose had going on, and what Ottawa had going on.
But
I don't think you can factor in the injuries.
No.
I don't. I think you just got to stay with COVID. If you're going to make an arbitrary number, if you got 8 on the COVID list, then shut it down.
But to your point, Kev, everybody except that you said, like, except Tyler Bertuzzi and maybe one other player are vaccinated. I'd say probably 99% of the staff, the coaching staff or the training staff in the league are all vaccinated, and yet we're having all these positives. It's obviously the Delta variant, which is breaking through. There was some talk about boosters, but they're saying right now that the league is not, they would encourage people to get boosters, but they're not saying it's something that they definitely have to do, and may only want players to do that if all of a sudden there's a border situation that Canada or the U.S. Needs people to have boosters. So, I mean, this is a fluid situation. This could be just right now temporary because rates are going up in the Northeast. But, I mean, that's why I keep saying I sound like I'm Johnny Raincloud when it comes to the Olympics. But and we're, probably a couple weeks away from them announcing the rosters. If that, maybe even next week they'll do it. It's still not 100% that they're going. I mean, this is really a situation that's up in the air.
The biggest thing is, and it's what Kevin said at the beginning, and I talked about the other day, but then I sort of like broke it down a little more on another show. Like, as an example, Josh Bailey is still in another city. He's not even in New York. And so the problem is you could have somebody, like, not even Vegas. Like, you could have somebody who's supposed to go to the All-Star game, but just test positive before the All-Star game. And then you wonder, what is the cutoff for the Olympics? Do they wait until the preliminaries are over, till you freeze the rosters? Or can, Kev, what's going to be the deal on that? I think it's the preliminaries, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think it might be fluid because of the uncertainty of the situation. Yeah. That's my guess, that they'll, kind of look at it. And, it's the same thing too we've talked about. They've had to submit those 55-person rosters, and I'm betting for both Canada and U.S. and other countries as well. Probably there are guys now that have emerged that they would like to get on that, but now what do you do about even the drug testing and all that? So there's a lot of things that are still have to be kind of worked out. At least that's what I've been told with regard to those issues.
Yeah, I saw Drake Batherson's name as somebody who somebody had mentioned Batherson as somebody who might be somebody that Team Canada would want to include on the 50 list, but he wasn't originally included on the 50 list. And the lead up in terms of testing to be on that list, if he wasn't in that, then really can they bring him on the list? Who knows?
Yeah, that's a question that has to be answered.
So, okay, just touching briefly on some of the games from last night, Russ. The Lightning keep rolling even though players keep dropping. Braden Point is out 4 to 6 weeks with an upper body injury, but they shut out the Flyers 4-0. I didn't see much of this game.
I saw it all, and I had a report on it. I'll tell you, the funny thing about the Lightning is this. If Steve Stamkos is on the team, on the ice, if Vasilevsky's there and Hedman's there, they could put in a cast of a lot of other players, but these guys can still dominate a game. And Stamkos had 3 points. Vasilevsky got the shutout. And the Flyers probably played their worst game in 2 years. Now, Brassard was out in the first period, so I get it, right? But they really couldn't mount much. They had some chances, nothing great. And Tampa really, in the second period, just, they just stonewalled them. They just dominated to the point where even with the Flyers have a little flurry in the third, couldn't do anything. So now we get Morgan Frost is getting called up. But I said last night, this is the worst possible scenario for this kid to get called up, because if he was called up 3 or 4 days ago, he'd have gotten in a practice or two. He would have gotten in a game or two, and the expectations might not have been so high for him to help the team, because now the team is really hurting. And Kevin Hayes has been out the whole time. They could have brought him up anytime Kevin Hayes got injured, and you could sit Nate Thompson, because Nate Thompson really doesn't do much. And it's fine. It actually would help the team offensively, because the Flyers' fourth line is so slow that Tampa was getting glorious chances the other end of the ice. The minute they lost a faceoff in the defensive end, they just went the other way, and it was like a track meet. The Tampa fourth line may be the best fourth line in the league. It really is good.
Every time I see Alex Barboulay score a point, I say to myself, how did this guy get placed on waivers by the Seattle Kraken?
Yeah, he had a goal.
Go back. Kev, my conspiratorial mind is thinking Tampa put him on waivers so Seattle would pick him up, and Seattle put him back on waivers so Tampa Bay could pick him up.
Well, for sure.
And
I don't think there's any doubt of that. Does anyone have any doubt about that?
No.
I'm just surprised that somebody else wouldn't have claimed him. Russ was talking about this guy in the preseason about how he has basically served his apprenticeship down in Syracuse, and he's a good player. I mean, yeah.
Rosters are tight. Like, a lot of teams really don't have any room to add players. Like, they've got, and so many teams have issues with players that can't go down the minors because they have to clear waivers. And
right.
So I'm sure they calculated about what teams would have the roster space. Obviously, Seattle would. They're not married to these players as much as other teams are. But so I just assumed that they cut a deal with them to get him back, because they were trying to, save him. But one point I did want to make about Tampa is we talk all the time about culture and, the tradition of winning and handing it down. We've seen in Pittsburgh, how many years have they been a strong offensive team? They just kind of pass it down. They played the same way regardless of who they've had for about 30 years or so. Well, I think the Lightning are an example of a team that's kind of developed a winning culture, and they just kind of plug guys in. And everybody knows how you got to play in order to win. They have their own version of the secret sauce, and they play that way. Yep. And as you said, they have the key guys that kind of lead the charge. When you've got the number one goalie, then arguably a top 3 defenseman, and Steven Stamkos, who at various times has been a top 3 forward, and then you add in the idea they know how to win, and they have a coach that can seem to instill that. I think that's why they should be down, but when you look at it, they still have an exceptional record.
And Jan, right now Tampa, like I said, they're without Kucherov, they're without a point until probably the new year. Kucherov probably will be back around the same time. I think they said 8 to 10 weeks, and that was over a month ago. So if they stay in the top 3 in the Atlantic through those injuries, they're set up perfectly to finish in second or third in that division. They don't need to finish first. They're set up perfectly for another run at a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I mean, they did it last year, right? No Kucherov all year long. Didn't seem to impact them. Stamkos was there most of the year, not all of the year, right? So same thing this year. They're used to making do, unfortunately, without certain players the last couple of years and shown the ability. Look, you look at what Ross Colton came out of nowhere, in essence, to become a solid fourth liner, as Ross kind of said. So they slide guys in. McDonough seems to have have a little resurgence this year. Was great in the playoffs last year, not great during the regular season. He's had a resurgence. Sergachev is back to where Sergachev looked like 2 years ago, in my opinion. You look at that blue line, and then Vasilevsky is just on the top of his game, and then you mix it with Anthony Cirelli stepping up a little bit now. Barre Boulet is getting a chance. Point was really getting hot when he first got injured. He'll be back. Hopefully, like more like a shoulder injury that he suffered. Kucherov will come back, and look, a three-peat would clearly not be out of the realm of possibility. I mean, they're going to make some moves around the edges.
Yeah.
I mean, Corey Perry hasn't done a lot, but they got Perry more so for what he can do down the road come playoffs.
He did score yesterday.
Right.
Yeah, he'll score 6 goals in the playoffs. Don't worry.
Right, but that's what I'm saying is he's the kind of guy you're going to get probably production out of him in the playoffs, because you look at that third and fourth line, and that's where they end up making their mark beyond all the talented guys they have up front. So look, they still could potentially win the conference, though. For them, I don't think that's imperative.
They don't
need to, right? The goal is to peak when you start hitting April, as opposed to worrying about peaking now.
Yeah. A little bit of positive in this negative injury situation they're facing is, I don't know if you've looked at their cap space with the long-term IR potential, but they now have millions of dollars to use at the trade deadline, because they're going to have these players out for extended periods.
Yeah, we all know they just don't know how to use their cap space at all. So
Not. They can't manage it.
Nope, not in the slightest.
No. The other 2 games last night, Dallas, who is really, sort of, I think underachieved based on what the preseason expectations were. But they're over 500 now, beating the Oilers 4-1. The interesting thing here with the Oilers, who, they're 13-5, so you can't really, only I will say, yeah.
You will, of course you will.
And I continue to say that I don't think they're a very good team. But they played Stuart Skinner in goal, Russ, because Smith is still hurt, and they have Koskinen and they played Skinner regularly the last couple weeks. I think they're trying to find out and figure out whether he can be an answer before they go out and make a trade for a goalie.
Well, he was a good prospect goalie, and he kind of got lost in the sauce there a little bit. But I think he's played some good games. And so I do think they're doing the right thing by checking this out, because if they find that Skinner's good, then they don't have to make another goalie move. They'll have enough goaltending in-house. So I think that's smart. The interesting thing about Dallas is, and this is what I can't figure out, I put up a list on Full Press for Dallas's top 10 prospects, and I moved Ottinger, honestly, to 11 because I didn't know what Dallas is doing with him. A couple of years ago, it seemed like he was the goalie apparent. Then he wasn't, because Khudobin gets hot. Then this year he's not, because, they start Khudobin again. And now all of a sudden they're riding Ottinger. And it's this is the one issue that I sort of have with Dallas is and I think it started when Bishop just kept going in and out of lineup. But ever since then, they have not settled on one goalie to sort of be the 1A. They have not settled on that at all. And I think it hurts them. But right now, this is the wave that they're riding.
And to make this goaltending situation even worse, Jan, they went out and signed Braden Holtby. So now you have 4 goalies.
Right. So I think the difference is here is Holtby got hot initially. They ran with him as opposed to Khudobin. Then Holtby got hurt, forcing them to call back up Ottinger, and now they've rolled with Ottinger, who probably, as you said, he is, in my opinion, he is the future in net for them. He is their future number 1 netminder.
He should be.
Holtby has kind of forced their hand a little bit. The fun part's going to become is what happens when Holtby comes back. Are they willing to stick with Ottinger and go with 3 goalies, even though it may not basically be the best within the room of having Holtby and Khudobin both up there? To me, also the big piece is you've seen very little out of Tyler Seguin. He hasn't been particularly good at all, and you haven't seen a whole heck of a lot out of Jamie Benn. Rupi Hintz got off to a horrible start. Take a look at his numbers the last 2-3 weeks. He's been ridiculously good. Jason Robinson missed a good part of the year. He missed the first couple of weeks of the year. with an injury. He's been hot since he's come back. And honestly, the best acquisition they made was Ryan Suter, because Ryan Suter has completely stabilized their back line and been their best defense. I mean, Klingberg's been good. 2 more assists last night. We know how good Miro Heiskanen is, but Ryan Suter has been phenomenal on the blue line for Dallas this year.
Well, Kevin, going back to the goaltending here, I heard something yesterday that I didn't expect. Apparently, Ben Bishop, he's not close in terms of like he's ready to come back next week, but he's getting back to the point where he might. It's very possible that he's going to be able to be healthy enough to return to the lineup. But they don't have the cap room. He's almost $5 million goaltender. You've got $5 million or a good chunk invested in Khudobin and Holtby. And if all of a sudden Ben Bishop's like, I'm healthy, okay, what are you going to do? Put him on waivers and let him go to the American Hockey League, or you get claimed? You're only saving $1 million on that.
Yeah, but I don't know that it would be the end of the world for them if he was claimed.
No.
I think they would be willing to risk that. But it is interesting. He said early on that he expected to play, but I think the Stars have just looked at this as like saying, well, if you show up, then we'll use you, but we can't count.
Mark Peterson's saying they had 4 goalies of practice. When's the last time you've seen 4 goalies of practice, Kev?
Maybe they can just go sideways as opposed to up and down, and we can play games that way, like when they were little kids, and just have the 2 goalies in net that way.
They had so much trouble scoring goals early that was a bigger problem than their goaltending. But now they're going to have to sort this out because, the thing about goalies is sometimes 2 is too many and sometimes 5 is not enough. And in their case, they got more than enough goalies.
And the factor here that's troublesome for them is if Bishop is healthy, he's got another year left in his contract. He's making almost
nobody's claiming him.
Nobody's claiming him. They'd probably have to retain to trade him, or maybe trade a Khudobin who's making.
I think Khudobin is the guy.
Khudobin's got 1 more year also at $3.3 million, so they might have to retain some salary even in that trade to try to move him.
Right.
I would have to say, though, that I'm happy to talk about Dallas's goaltending far more than Edmonton's. Like, I don't know about you, but I almost have Oilers goalie fatigue.
Yeah, I do.
I'm actually thinking of boycotting the discussion on Edmonton. So how long has it been? It's been a couple of years. Like I feel like, in a court of law, a lawyer would just say, let's stipulate that the Oilers need to get a goalie. Right. And that we won't have to talk about it all the time.
But again, you can't overlook how well Koskinen has played this year. He's been great. Smith got hurt. And Skinner, as Russ said, his last 3 games, despite the loss yesterday, have been really good. He had a 46 save game the other night where he only gave up 1 goal. I mean, nobody would have expected this. Granted, it may be smoke and mirrors, but they are playing better. But the problem is, we've talked about, right? And notwithstanding John Tortorella's comments in terms of McDavid needing to play defense, their issues are on the back end. They've always been on the back end, right? Losing Clefbaum again this year doesn't help them. But if the guys on the back end, especially Darnell Nurse and a couple other guys, can actually play up to their potential, it makes their goaltending a lot easier, given the fact they know they can pretty much outscore every team.
Yeah, but here's my point about Koskinen, and it's the same one that I think Mike would say is true about the Maple Leafs. I don't care how good the Maple Leafs are in the regular season. The question will be is, can they get it done in the playoffs? And I don't care how good Koskinen is this regular season. There's still going to be a question about whether or not they should go out and get a proven goaltender because, Connor McDavid and Draisaitl are so good that you've got to pull out all the stops and bring in the best possible goalie. I think everybody's aware of that, and it doesn't matter how good
Kevin, projecting ahead, if Chicago continues on the pace that they're going, does Marc-Andre Fleury become a target for Edmonton if you're talking about adding a playoff goalie? And he hasn't been good at all. He becomes
a target for 2 or 3 teams at least, Jan, because there are other teams out there that need goaltending just as much as Edmonton does. Minnesota, I think, needs goaltending.
Talbot's been okay. I don't think them going after another big-name goaltender with Talbot there.
It's a rental.
Koskinen also.
It's a rental.
I know.
Talbot's been below average in terms of save percentage in analytics. So,
yeah. So, and I know I'll piss off Flamester in the chat here, but the Flames win 5-2. I was not shocked that they beat the Blackhawks 5-2. It's sort of like, the things just keep on rolling, bad for the Blackhawks and well for the Flames, and that's that just seems to be the constant right now. The thing that's surprising with the Flames is they played 13 of their 20 games on the road, and now their schedule turns very, very home heavy the next month or so. So if they have the same type of success at home that they have on the road, then they're going to be challenging Edmonton for the top spot in the Pacific.
Well, I think we need to see if Andrew Mangiapane can actually score at home, because we sure have seen he can score on the road. That's for sure.
Did he score last night?
No, he didn't. But he's got 13 of his 14 goals, I think, are come on the road this year.
That's why we didn't hear from Mac.
I saw a story yesterday, and I was Googling something on the Flames, and one of the first stories that came up is Mangiapane, dark horse for Canadian Olympic team, and I said somewhere Mike Agello is gagging right now. So.
He is a dark horse.
No, and the other one would be Ilya Sorokin starting over Vasilevsky for Team Russia would be the other one, because then we can say Ek kind of had a hand in that.
Yes.
Well, actually, but here's a thing that I'll have to ask Kevin. Kev, before this year began, did Team USA have Johnny Gaudreau on the list of 55? Because if they didn't, they probably wish they did now.
Yeah, for sure. I would guess they would,
Okay.
because they really do factor in, the whole body of work. So
Right.
I would assume he's on there. I don't know the answer to that. They've been actually quite guarded about who's on and who's not. So, I mean, I don't really know. I'm assuming Troy Terry's not on the list, but
I would assume he probably wasn't. Nobody would have had a reason to have him.
And so I don't know. I don't know what whether he would be on the list or not. But it's going to be interesting. That JT Miller just keeps rolling along. Is he the number 2 center? Is he the Eichel replacement?
I think he is.
Oh, it could be Dylan Larkin. He's also playing very well, but. It'll be interesting to see.
If Jack Hughes had stayed healthy, the question is, I don't know when Jack Hughes comes back with.
He's skating already. He was at practice again today.
Can he play well enough in a month or so to make the Olympic team? I don't. I don't know if that's enough. Because remember, he's not coming off a great year last year. So
no, but he started off this year really well. That's the thing.
True. Right, and that's if he would have stayed healthy, I think he would have been not a shoo-in, but I think he would have been his case would have been much better. Shang Peng, our former hockey buzzer and our friend from San Jose, wrote yesterday about Evander Kane. Now, Evander Kane's suspension ends on November 30th. He is not skating with the team, because I don't think that's
not allowed. He can't.
Yeah, it's not allowed. But he's skating at the facility.
Right.
But it's a question of whether we heard the stuff about the team not wanting, or at least some of the players on the team either not having contact with him or not wanting him back. And Kev, Shang writes that in a trade, and apparently he has a limited no trade of 3 or 4 teams, that they would have to retain salary to get rid of him. And I don't know whether that's the way to go here for San Jose, or simply, nobody's going to claim him if you put him on waivers. You send him to the Barracudas, and then you buy him out at the end of the year. I think that's more likely than them being I don't understand. I don't know anybody who would trade for Evander Kane right now. Do you know any team that would?
Well, yeah, they said that about Anthony DeAngelo, and he's playing pretty well for the Carolina Hurricanes. So, we make those statements, but, you look at there's a lot of 100 penalty minute seasons and a lot of goal scoring accomplishment in his background. So I wouldn't completely rule it out. Your point, I think, is well taken. Nobody wants to add a problem. But, if you're desperate, and you want to change it, and, you think you try to convince yourself, well, now he's hit rock bottom. He'll clearly get better and, act and behave more properly. And he's, seeking some help for his, addictions. Well, I mean, you can.
Well, I'm going to fuel something here while Kevin froze, I guess. So we know that Vitaly Kravtsov is on the market. And we also know that for years, Len Sater has wanted Evander Kane on the New York Rangers. And so I do kind of wonder, would they do that? And I can't rule it out with Gerard Gallant as coach, because I have a feeling if they went up to him, I think Gallant would okay it. I do, in some sort of deal.
So they wouldn't bring D'Angelo back last year.
Different
Chris Drury was adamant in the offseason about not bringing D'Angelo back again, and now you're going to trade for Evander Kane?
Well, okay, but there's a reason. D'Angelo had a blood feud with Panarin and Georgiev and members of that team. Kane does not have that with them.
Kane just has a lot of other issues that honestly are probably a heck of a lot worse if the rumors are true than having a feud on the team, in my opinion.
Those guy Wade Redden, who had known problems.
And those interests, those issues will not come to the forefront if he's playing on Broadway. No.
Listen, I'm not saying it would be the smartest thing. I'm just saying I can't rule it out.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, and we talked about D'Angelo and his issues during the offseason, and we're skeptical when he got signed by Carolina. It was a 1-year, $1 million contract. If he hadn't worked out, they bury him down in Charlotte, and it's
they waive him,
or they
$1 million. They just waive him, and he also had to sit out the last 5+ months of the year last year.
Right, but with Kane, even though there's a lot of positives there in terms of him being, San Jose's leading scorer last year, and a really good forward and a really talented player, he's got 3 more years at $7 million.
Yep.
So I mean, unless San Jose is going to sort of grease the wheels here,
they'll retain.
They'd have to retain at least.
You're still talking $3.5 million over the next this year, plus the next 3 years beyond that. Rangers can't fit that in salary-wise, even if they wanted to.
Oh, they could trade somebody in that deal to fit it in.
You're trading Jacob Trouba? No,
they won't trade Trouba, I don't think, in that deal. But
they're trading Chris Kreider?
No. Listen, they won't trade Kreider. But
he's got to know
there's somebody they can trade, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
or trade Patrick Nemeth at $2.2 million over the next 2 years, and you free up room that way.
Well, I mean, that's one guy, sure. I mean,
I don't know. I right now I would think that the pluses are there in terms of Kane, in terms of the talent on the ice, but to me he's toxic, and I don't know. I don't know that any team that, unless a team is absolutely desperate, that would bring him in.
Again, we say that, Mike, but like Kevin said,
no, I will grant you.
There's a fit everywhere, but wasn't, again, Mike and Russ, you know better than I do. Wasn't there a bunch of stories coming out of San Jose that a bunch of the players, I think including Hurdle, didn't want him back on the team?
Yeah, in San Jose, but that still doesn't mean the whole league feels that way.
Yeah. So
I don't know. Yeah. I would look. There's always a place for. Let me phrase that. There is usually a place for someone, and your talent, as we've seen in every other sport, will get you a myriad of chances if you have that talent. I just think bringing him on board anywhere right now is a hot button item until you can have. You can't get guaranteed, but enough time, some additional time has gone past beyond the reason why he was out. And the falsification potentially of a COVID vaccine card clearly is not going to play well in locker rooms all over the league.
I mean, look, it depends on the team. As an example, the Rangers once had Sean Avery. That same Sean Avery was thrown out of the Dallas locker room by Marty Turco. So it depends on the team and, what they're like.
And he wore out his welcome also in New York.
Yeah, eventually, but they did have him.
Yes. Marty Brodeur loved him. He was his favorite player.
Listen, they signed Billy Tibbetts once, so
we can't do the thing I wanted to talk about, justice, in a few minutes. So we'll save that till Monday. But I want to touch on this because Kev, it's a tradition. Thanksgiving, the Detroit Lions play. Do you always? I know you've gone to those games in the past because you were a season ticket holder. Will you watch?
I've covered, written about. For sure. I wrote about 20 of them, covered them. But I know right now there's a big movement afoot to try to get the Lions to lose because they don't provide an entertaining option for people to watch. But it is a very big event in Detroit. It's a tradition that's important to everybody knows about the Lions on Thanksgiving. I love to tell the story. When I was a kid, teenager, my cousin, they weren't sold out, and we wanted to watch that Thanksgiving game. So he went to Radio Shack, which was kind of a new store then. Now they're out of business. And we bought a super large antenna, climbed up on his roof, installed the thing so we could pull the game in from Cleveland. Like, that's what a big event it is in Michigan. So it would be a shame for them to lose that. I just say let other teams play, but give the Lions their Thanksgiving Day game. That's.
I kind of pictured once didn't I picture once like Eddie Payton and Walter Payton playing in that game?
Yep, they did.
Yeah.
Payton, I think Eddie had a kickoff return in one of
I think he did
for a touchdown.
Yeah.
See, I just go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say that the Lions have traditionally played better on Thanksgiving than you think. They've risen up and competitive, but they've also had some ridiculous things happen. There was an overtime game with the Bears that ended on a kick return for a touchdown in overtime.
I mean, Kevin, this may be unfair, but in my family, when we all get together, I look at the schedule, and whatever time the Lions game is, that's when we're eating.
Well, but no, I mean, you say that as if you're. It's a joke, but I think people count on that. I mean, the Lions.
Damn it. We'll see if he.
It's funny because on the Fan, they were joking around saying we should start a petition to get the Lions off of Thanksgiving Day.
Nah,
no,
it was in jest, given how bad they've been. And
what I always remember about the Lions playing on Thanksgiving is quarterbacks like Gary Danielson and Eric Hipple.
Yep.
And
Billy
Sims, and them wearing for years on end, they wore those silver helmets with no emblem, and the blue jersey. The blue jersey. It was their throwback jersey.
Steve, can tell the story again. Yeah. Your response to me, it froze.
Your video froze.
Oh no! I mean, you make a joke about it, but I think that's true. I mean, I think the Lions game always starts at 12:30, and I've had many people tell me around the country that most people eat around about 2:30. Not everybody, but most people, and so they plan on basically eating during the first game, and then have the good game with Dallas at 4:00. Like I think that's part of the tradition.
Okay.
Well, here's the dilemma.
I was just going to say, but you sort of have that Lions game just on in the background.
Right, it's in the background.
Just in case something.
As you're basting the turkey, the Lions are throwing an interception for a touchdown. But no, here's our dilemma. The Bills play on Thursday night. They played the late game. Now, we're eating dinner around 5:00. By 8:20, when that game is starting, the tryptophan in the turkey has kicked into full gear, and I'm ready for bed. But I'm gonna have to either pace myself.
Michael will push his way through. He'll find a way to suck it up to be able to watch that game. If Josh Allen plays as bad as he did the last 2 weeks, you may want to turn off the TV.
I'll be guzzling Red Bull at 7:30 just to stay awake.
Less turkey, more stuffing. Carbs.
There you go. All right. Great show, guys. We'll be back on Monday with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For all of our U.S. viewers, happy Thanksgiving. For Kevin Allen, for Russ Cohen, for Jan Levine, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.